the Greater Annapolis Market Update for November 2020. And basically, the deal is, should we sell now or wait to buy? So I am Brendan Spear with Caprika Realty, and I love diving into all this data. So bear with me. Let's jump in. Let's see what's going on, and just basically have a nice little conversation on my outlook and see if you agree or disagree. Let me know in the comments. So here's the first thing is this. There's more homes that have sold this year than last year. Now, this is kind of insane when you think about it. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic and more homes have sold, but everybody's talking about the low inventory. Well, yes, there is this high demand because people are tired of being stuck in their homes, and basically the interest rates are really crazy low. So all the normal reasons from, getting married to getting divorced, maybe sick of living with each other, or maybe people, dealing with virtual school or working from home, wanting more space. So there's a high demand to go move right now. The problem is there's a lot of sellers that are sitting on the sideline that you would normally jump on because they're saying it's a seller's market. Let's go sell. But they're not selling right now, and we're going to get into the reason why. But so, right, the key is more homes have sold, but yet less active homes right now. So are we headed, though, for another great crash like 2008? I mean, that has to be on your mind, right? I mean, if you're thinking about selling and buying something, you want to make sure that the market's not about to fall out and that you're overspending, or vice versa. If you're buying right now, you kind of want to make sure, hey, did I not pay too much this second? So this is a kind of a common thing that I get right now. People are like, oh, is there a bubble happening? What's going on? So let's dive into some of the numbers, and you can decide for yourself. So back in April, one of my last updates, I said, look, this is what some of the big companies, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, they were expecting a V type recovery. And you can see this is what we said was going to happen, right? V kind of shape coming in from the second quarter going into the third quarter. Well, how does it stack up? What actually happened? Well, the numbers for the GDP are in, and guess what? We hit that V shape. Now, here's a key thing, and this is kind of gets into the weeds here. This is for the GDP, our gross domestic product. So there are some economists who kind of talk about a K shape. If you hear that, that's not referring to the GDP. That's actually referring more to individuals. There's going to be a class of people who, for whatever reason, their type of job or their income was greatly affected by the pandemic, and they may not be recovering so fast. So they're going to be on a lower a lower recovery trajectory versus a lot of other people who instantly got back to work or started, found other work or something where they've shot right back up. So that's a K shape, but that's not about the GDP. That's just more for on the individual population based. Okay. Now this is pretty wild. So with the stimulus checks, you might be thinking, okay, well, we had to bail people out. People could do forbearances, all this stuff. Well, what did they do with the money? Well, check this out. According to the New York Fed, 35% of the people paid down debt with that stimulus check. 29% just spent the money. Maybe on fun. Maybe they got, I don't know, toys or whatever, PlayStation 5 or something. And then 36% saved the money. So really, 35 plus 36, what's that? 71% of people either saved or paid down debt. Hey, that's not too shabby, right? Just in terms of they didn't just blow it all on roulette or something. So this is interesting. I found this kind of blew my mind, actually. This is from January 1st to now, change in consumer spending. Check this out. We're Maryland, 0.7% less is what we're looking at. In the United States overall, 3.7%. Now, some of the places, 11.1, here's 12.2, minus 14.6. So a few of them, kind of high. But if you look on the East Coast, not too shabby, but in particular, Maryland, sitting with only minus 0.7%. So the consumers around our area are roughly spending the same amount of money. That's usually a good sign, right? That means we have to probably be making a decent amount of money in order to stay on that same cash flow. So I think that's a really optimistic number, seeing that trend in terms of what's happening in Maryland in particular. This is pretty wild. This is from the Bureau of Labor of Statistics. You can see this is the weekly unemployment filings in millions. So back in March, April, look at that, 6.9, 6.6 million people filed weekly for unemployment. I mean, it was crazy town, just the amount of numbers. But it's almost logarithmic. You can see how it's really gone down to right now. Look at 1031, it's only 0.75. Now, yes, there's still a lot of people filing unemployment. Don't get me wrong, but this is the right trends, right? I mean, this we spiked up, which we expected. We tried to flatten the curve, and since then, it really came back down. Now you might be saying, but Brendan, dude, if we're gonna have a second wave of other things happen, should this go up a little bit? And I'm gonna say, yeah, look, if we close down bars or close down restaurants and stuff like that, and not that we should or shouldn't, but like if that happens, yes, I would expect some of those unemployment numbers to go back up. But I think it's positive to see that as things reopened, nationally speaking, those numbers went back down. And so if that trend stays the same, I think that's very positive. Now, currently receiving unemployment insurance. So check this out, 24.9 back around May, right? As of end of October, look how down we are, 7.3. So million people, that's way less than that 24.9 million people that were currently getting unemployment. Now you can see right there in March 3.1. So obviously we're still more than double of what we were previous to the pandemic. So it's nothing to sneeze at, I mean, it's nothing like it's people still need work. Um, Kind of jumping ahead a little bit, there's some economists are saying that they project it'll take about 4 years to come back as far as regular employment numbers and sort of recovery. So it is going to, potentially could be kind of a slow recovery here, guys. I'm not trying to sugarcoat that, but what I'm going to say is overall, the economy has weathered this pretty well. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the fact that things reopen and all the stimulus money that has been thrown at people and at businesses to try to stay afloat. I know, look, there's been a lot of death, a lot of sickness, and individuals who've had some really rough times. So I'm not trying to belittle that. Um, we dealt with that our own, in our family, and it's been tough. But what I'm just going to say is, I think overall, this is some really good numbers for the market. So this is just data from the Survey of Business and Uncertainty. SBU suggests that the road forward is going to be a tough slog. Businesses hold tepid expectations for a year ahead employment and the sales growth. Expectations are in fact so tepid that based on the latest average projection, it will take firms more than 4.5 years to recover to pre-COVID employment levels. That's according to the Federal Reserve Bank. That's just what I was just saying, as it's going to take some time. You know, that being said, this is not like it was in 2008 where everything was super down and stayed down for like, 4 to 10 years. This is a smaller sector that is going to take longer to recover. So still rough, but way better than we had before. This actually blew my mind. Check this out. So one thing that is awesome is this is America, right? Like the business opportunity, go do what you want, try to build a business, etc. This is amazing. This is your business applications in the United States. Look at this. Pretty steady, from 2005 to 2019. Yeah, it goes up a little bit the last couple of years, which makes sense again. Like 2008 was when the Great Recession was. So once 2016, 2018, we're like 8, 10 years away. You should start to see it up because we've been far enough out of the Great Recession. That being said, look at that, 2020, it skyrockets. Well, that's because people had to make adjustments, right? There's so many things that people had to pivot and do in order to survive this pandemic. And that's one thing that really makes me proud about where we live. And so anyways, it makes me feel special, warm and fuzzy inside, America. Woohoo. So that's awesome. And I think that's not all countries can say that. So very cool. All right, great. So, but what about all the people who can't make their mortgage? We heard about all the forbearances, and there's people been scared about, okay, well, where does that put us in terms of foreclosures? Are we going to have a big wave of foreclosures because people can't make their payments? Well, let's look at the facts. The number of mortgages in active forbearance decreased dramatically. So check that out, 529. You can see this whole red section here, in the mid fours, the high fours, drops all the way down to 4 by about 8.7. And then again, 4 drops to 3.6 by 10.2. And then boom, 10.8. It really goes down to around 3. Now, if you're thinking, okay, well, why? Well, a lot of the forbearances were 3 months. Some of the stuff could be up to 6 months, but a lot of the private loans, like if you just called your lender, depending on what kind of loan type you had, a lot of them gave you 3 months. And so 5, 6, 7, 8, okay, that's gonna be one section. For some of the other people that were at 6 months, okay, well that's putting them just to like about now, right? Or just maybe next month. So it's the math makes sense in terms of when people took the forbearances and how long they were. Now, what happened during those forbearances? Did they get foreclosed on? Did they repay it? Well, let's see what happens. Check this out. Actually, that'll be my next slide. But percentage of overall forbearance is decreasing. Just May, June, July, August, September, October. You can see 8.47, and it steadily goes down all the way to 5.83 in October. So that's fantastic. This is the one I was trying to speak to. This is cool. Check this out. Of the 5,760,000 families granted a forbearance, this is what happened upon expiration of the plan. So 2,397,000 extended their forbearance. Maybe they started for 3 months and needed another 3 months. Maybe they're a small business owner, a restaurant owner or something, they're still having a little trouble. So they got an extension. Okay, hey, that's the point of the forbearance and about them being lenient, and makes perfect sense. All good. But this is wild. 2,302,000 of them removed while performing. So in other words, they got their forbearance and then they removed it. It was over 2 million people who were able to just pick back up where they were. 500,000 people paid off their mortgage. That doesn't mean that they necessarily just said, "Here, oh, here's a big thing of cash." Maybe they sold their house and they paid off their mortgage. But the point is, between the people paid off their mortgage and the people who removed it as like the normal process, that accounts for 44%. That's huge. Now, you have this other little piece here, 481,000. They're delinquent or they're in the middle of still negotiating, right? So maybe they're trying to add the payments to their end, or they're still in negotiation. So it's not a foreclosure, it's not necessarily a short sale. They're working things out. And then there's 80,000 people who are delinquent. Those people may get foreclosed on or could be delinquent. But like 80,000 compared to the 5,760,000 families that took a forbearance, this is really good news for where things are at. So I'm extremely happy to see those numbers. Percentage of distressed property sales. This is January 2012 all the way through today. So if you remember, 2008 market crashed. The next several years, almost every property that I dealt with was like a foreclosure or short sale on the sale side. It was a nightmare. And you could see we hit 35% of the properties were a distressed property back then. It was crazy time. It's really sucked being in business then, honestly. But fast forward that to January 2019, we hit 4%, all the way up to right there. You can see January 2020, and then boom, 1%. So, and that was in September. So 1% of the sales is representing short sales foreclosures, nationally speaking. That's really, really low. And that's where, honestly, it's where it should be. But I'm just trying to say, you can see the trends here. This is really good news in terms of the stability of the real estate market, nationally speaking. In fact, Ivy Zelman said the likelihood of the U.S. having a foreclosure crisis again is about 0%. So I tend to agree. Now, one of the reasons for this is low inventory. I'm sure you've heard all around low inventory, buyers can't find a place, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, let's check out the numbers. All right, months of inventory or supply, right? So in a normalized market, from just a statistical from a statistical, all right, months of supply or months of inventory in a normal market, not balanced towards buyers or biased towards buyers or sellers, is 6 months. In my definition, if you've seen some of my other market updates, I say 4 to 6 months. And if you look in May, we were at 4.8. In fact, in April, we were at 4. So we were really headed towards that normalized market, which is what I've been talking about for about 2 years. In fact, you can even see last October at 3.9. So we were getting there, right? We're getting more towards that normal market. But then you can see the last couple months. Look at this: July, August, September, 3.1, 3.0, 2.7 in September. It's insane, and that's nationally. The numbers are actually even less in Anne Arundel County and in Annapolis. I'm going to show you in just a few more slides here. Now, okay, so there's this high demand, right? Like I said before, buyers want to buy. But we talk about low inventory. Well, why do we have low inventory? Well, the top three reasons, according to Zillow, from a poll study that they did, 31% is financial uncertainty, 34% is life is just too uncertain right now. So we're talking 65% is because they're uncertain. So if you think about this, it's kind of like if you're not sure where, like, are you going to have a job, or where your kid's going to go to school, or you just don't know exactly what's going on. You may not want to make this big sale or purchase because, just it's too stressful. Too many things are going on. And that's basically what the study is showing. 25% is because of health concerns. So sure, some people, they don't want people in their house because they don't want to get the virus. And yeah, that makes sense. But what I'm trying to say is this. Right now, that's what's keeping sellers from putting their house in the market. Buyers still want to buy. So one thing that's important to realize here is as we get more stability, as we have more consumer confidence, more sellers are going to put their house on the market. So if you're thinking about selling, this is a great time to sell your house from the standpoint of there's not a lot of competition. You can be a very big fish in a small pond because there's very few active homes. But if you say, no, I want to wait till things stabilize, well, you and 10 or 20% of the market is feeling the same way. And so if we have 10 or 20% more homes on the market, well, you're not going to have the same bidding wars. It still may be a great seller's market, but we won't have as many because buyers will have more choices. So what's the forecast? Well, the Mortgage Broker Association, their chief economist, Mike, what do they say? Forecast that mortgage rates could rise in the year to come, but they'll remain in all near-time lows. So what they had projected, they're just saying 2019, 3.7, 2020, 3%. Okay, 2021, they're thinking 3.3, 2022, 3.6, 2023, 3.9. Now, I don't know about that 2022, 2023, but I will agree that in 2021, 3.3, maybe 3.5%, sure, it could happen. If we get a vaccine and we get more consumer confidence, you're going to see more stability, and therefore the rates are going to start to go up, in my opinion. Typically, the rates are going to be lower when you have more volatility, when you have more uncertainty. All right, so how does that break down into, like, what's the traffic like? What's the interest? What's going on? Well, in the United States, overall days on market, 21 days. Like, that's phenomenally low. I don't know if you realize how crazy low that is, but that's really low. And you can see in Maryland, we're between the 15 and 30 day in terms of that little blue color right in there. But still, 21 days, United States-wise, that's huge. Now, this is crazy, though. Year-over-year percent change in price. So basically, what's the median sold price, right? And you can see what they forecasted it to be only up 0.2%, but what it's actually 6.7%. And that's nationally speaking. So in other words, the low inventory and that high demand and low interest rates has jumped prices in the entire country more or less up by 6.7%. That's huge. And really, we people were talking about a slight correction in the economy, or maybe like a mini little recession or something at the end of 2021 going into 2022. And yeah, okay, so we had the whole pandemic, and you could say GDP was low, blah, blah, blah. Okay, sure, I agree. And I talked about that months ago. But what I want to point out, though, is that we were expecting, very modest gains in appreciation, but it's skyrocketed because of these interest rates and low inventory. Now, housing supply year over year. If this is a little bit confusing when you first look at it, so I don't want to explain the whole thing, like, bore you to death here. But what I just want you to say is where they wanted the numbers to be, this is kind of like compared to that. So like in October, we're only 4.3% off the mark, year over year. Or if you compare that to September, at minus 19.2%. So clearly the last few months, April, May, June, July, August, September, basically the last, 6 months of a pandemic, you can see that our supply nationwide is down 20% compared to where it was a year ago. Again, low inventory. That's all. It's just another way to say low inventory. How's the buyer demand? Well, buyer traffic index, this is from the National Association of Realtors, which, by the way, just had their convention just going on, and they did it virtually, of course, for this year. But you can see Maryland in the dark blue, and which is very strong, which I can tell you, that's no secret. You can just go on Facebook and see people writing all kinds, losing out on offers, et cetera, et cetera. I just actually had a townhouse in Columbia. We had 40 showings over the weekend and 14 offers. It was insane. All right, so mortgage interest rates, obviously a big deal. This is from Freddie Mac, the 30-year fixed rate. You can see kind of 4%, and then boom, had a little uptick there, a little scare, and then how it's been trending down all the way to more currently about 2.78%. Now, look, there are some rates that are 2.5. There's some stuff that's closer to 3. Depends on a few different factors, but the point is that trend has gone pretty steadily down for the last several months, and it's just insanely low. I do expect it to go slightly up, but right now it's and even if it goes slightly up, honestly, if you're thinking about buying next year and you get like a 3.3 or 3.5% interest rate, that is still incredibly, incredibly low. I remember, well, I don't remember because I was 2 years old, but my parents told me when they built their house in Greenbelt in 1982, it was like a 15 or 16% interest rate. It's pretty mind-boggling that we're talking about interest rates around 3%. That is nuts. All right. So here again, this is from Freddie Mac instead of the other guys. And again, 3.97 there, boom, 1.716. Fast forward to closer to now, 2.78. So again, same kind of thing, just different organization. Mortgage rate projections. So where are we going? So fourth quarter, Freddie thinking we're going to hit 3%, Fannie thinking 2.9, MBA 3%, NAR 2.9. So this is the Freddie Mac, Fannie quasi-government agencies, the Mortgage Broker Association, NAR, the National Association of Realtors. If you look at the average of all four of them, 2.95%. So these are like your four big players, and they're thinking 2.95% is where we should be for the fourth quarter for interest rates. Quarter one of next year, 3% average, second quarter 3%, third quarter jumping up, 3.05%. So again, pretty. So Fannie Mae, they're obviously a little bit more. It's a little bit lower. They're a little more conservative on that, or aggressive, I guess, in terms of staying low. Everybody else jumping up a little bit compared to them. So I'm curious why Fannie thinks that. But either way, hey, look, if it's 2.8 or 3.2, I'm not going to cry. That's phenomenal, and you'll see the house is still selling like hotcakes if they stay that low. So let's jump into some Annapolis stats. I know I said this is your Annapolis market update, but I really did want to touch first on all the kind of crazy big picture things, is because if you're really thinking about selling or buying and you're unsure, I think if you look at the data, you can have confidence to make a decision that makes sense for you. And the data is pretty solid. So first, closed sales. Closed sales, again, I told you we're up. Look at this. The October 2020 average right now is 179. I'm sorry, not average, but the October right now is 179 closed sales, where your 5-year average was 139. So we're above that. New pendings, in other words, new contracts, right? Again, 163 versus 146 average. But here's the kicker. New active listings, 152 compared to 444. Like, that's ridiculous. We have 152 currently active listings when this was printed, right? Compared to 444 for a 5-year average. Nuts. Month supply? Well, 1 month. Remember I said things are moving fast. I wasn't kidding. All right. Active listings? Well, here, same numbers, right? Look at that. 152 versus 454 last year. That's a 66.5% less, like year over year. That's crazy. Two-thirds less activities. It's nuts, man. Totally nuts on how many less homes are active right now. Everything that's going is boom, 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 fast. Median sold price. Well, again, simple economics, right? Low interest rates, high demand, low inventory, big fish being a small pond. In October 2019, you were looking at 427,500 as the median sold price in Annapolis. Right now, it is 485. That's a 13.5% increase from this time last year. New listings. Well, again, same thing. This is just, in Annapolis, if we take that 142 compared to 178 in 2019, 20% less new listings. Anne Arundel, closed sales. So this kind of mimics the whole Annapolis thing. So in Anne Arundel, we're looking at 1110 in October compared to 802. So again, a couple hundred higher. New pendings, new contracts, right? So 1117 versus 868. Active listings, again, look at that, almost half, right? 1,037 versus 2,134. So almost half the amount of active listings from the 5-year average compared to where we are now. And months of supply, 1.2. So again, 5-year average is 2.8. So things are fast, fast, fast. If you are a seller, it's great. If you're a buyer, hang in there. I think more properties will hit the market come like end of February into March is when I think you're going to start to see more action. A few other just quick highlights for you, and we'll wrap this up. This is another just kind of way to look at it. You can see your closed sales in October, 1110, median sold price basically about 400,000. Your average sold price 465, 534. Your median days on market 7 days. 7 days. 1 week. That's insane. Average days on market 22. Don't worry about your square footage and all that. So, but just trying to say, look, fast, man. Median days on market 7 days. It's quick. And yeah, I know you're probably thinking, but I hear Brendan, people are going under contract over the weekend. Yeah, remember this is median. So even the people who are sitting for a little bit, they're increasing our average, where everybody else who's selling that weekend or in a day, it's bringing it down. Just another way to look at it, the active listings for Anne Arundel, 1037 compared to 2099. Annapolis, you can see 152, Odenton, 80, Pasadena, 57. Look, big picture, just stare at the change here. Look at that, 50%, 66, 41, 69. All those numbers in the red, they're showing how much less comparatively from last year. In other words, way less active properties, which is what all the data that I've been saying, and I keep saying, low inventory. New listings. So this is kind of interesting. So you can see the green areas, like Anne Arundel overall for new listings right now is up 18.1%. Laurel is up, Odenton is up, Pasadena is up, North Beach is up, Tracy Landing is up, but then a lot of other areas are down. So just kind of interesting when you kind of say, well, where is the new action? Pasadena has been really hot lately. You can see that there. Yeah, it's fascinating. Days on market, well, Anne Arundel was 22 days for 2020, 46 days for 2019. So again, quick. And some of them, look at that. Millersville, 9 days. Gibson Islands, 1 day. Curtis Bay, 7. And then some other, Silverton Park, 27. Edgewater, 31. Dunkirk, 38, etc. Lothian, a little bit slower, 43 days, but still not too shabby. So still very quick. And this is just the kind of highlight of everything I just said, right? So how many units sold? 18.7% up. Your median sold price $395 for 2020 versus $358. That's 10.3% higher than it was in 2019. How many units are pending? How many new listings, etc. Same data, just a different way to look at it. All right. So what's the summary? Well, basically, a strong seller's market. Q3 2022 when? Well, honestly, unless we have something really screwy happen, I'm gonna say that we're gonna have a strong seller's market all the way through 2021. I say that because even if we add 10, 20, 30% more homes, it's still not going to be enough. And if interest rates stay below 3.5, that's still going to be aggressive enough for people to want to go buy homes. So if you're thinking, hey, do I sell now or can I sell in March, April? Well, yeah, you could sell whenever. But if you have the ability to sell now versus waiting, what I'm going to say is you may have more choices on your offers. You may have more action. So you could choose maybe a stronger offer, maybe one that doesn't have closing help or one that's as is or would waive part of the appraisal. Like you might be able to get a stronger choice now because you can be that big fish in that small pond. So low active inventory, great for sellers. Low interest rates, great for buyers, which also indirectly is great for sellers because it means you have more buyers that can look. Recovery of the forbearance and the unemployment is better than some had feared. I think a lot of people were scared that we wouldn't get that V curve. for the GDP, and we did. And I think some people were afraid that with the forbearances that we'd have more foreclosures. And the math just is not showing it. It's looking good. Closed transactions are up. Woohoo! I'm a fan of that. Median sold price is up. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. High demand, low interest rates, low inventory, prices go up. Once we have more consumer confidence comes, the inventory will rise. So look, as we're getting news of the vaccines that are being developed and coming out. I believe even if the vaccines aren't really ready for us until like April or May, the fact is, as the effectiveness and the news of them comes out, I believe that will be enough to give us more consumer confidence that there'll be more sellers who will want to hit the market to try to get ahead of some other people coming on the market and try to capitalize on this seller's market. So my belief is February or March is when we'll start to see a trend up of inventory coming on. That's my guess. We'll see. I don't have a crystal ball, but that's my educated guess. Once we have the stability, inventory may rise as well as interest rates, which may inversely slow down the seller's market appreciation. So in other words, as things stabilize, the expectation is that interest rates should rise slightly, and as they do, that will slow down the appreciation. Now, I'm not saying depreciate it. I'm saying that instead of a 6.7%, maybe we're at 3% or something. So things will slow down just a hair. And that's it, guys. So I hope that makes good sense. I know I just ran through lots of data. If you have any questions at all, comment below. Happy to answer. If you're thinking about selling or buying and you want to jump into any of this stuff, I'd love to talk to you, and happy to go over any of it. I love these things. This stuff's fun. So I'm Brendan Spear with Caprika Realty, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care.